Hello and welcome to the Alpha Anywhere demo and Q&A webcast. I'm Dave McCormick, VP of Product Management here at Alpha Software, and I am pleased to be joined by our presenter today, Sarah Mitchell, our Director of Customer Success. And today, Sarah's presentation is going to be all about branding, so I'm looking forward to seeing it. Hi, Sarah, are you there?
I am here. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can see your screen, but I suspect it might still be paused. So that's just, I can see your mouse
There
move.
we
So
go. Yeah.
we're all good.
Yeah, making sure we unpause. Anyway, yes. Thank you. And thank you everyone for joining us today. We are going to be talking about branding, not how to do it, but also how to do it. But before we begin, I just want to remind everyone that Alpha DevCon is coming up soon. And if you haven't registered yet, you can head on over to www.alphasoftware.com/devcon2022 and sign up. It's going to be a fantastic fantastic DevCon this year. It is going to be remote, so it will be online again, but I'm looking forward to it, and I'm hoping to see you there. So we're going to talk about branding today, and this is something we've talked about a lot before, and some of you who have been attending these series over the years may recognize some of the things that we're going to talk about today. But I'm hoping that you will still take something away from this presentation. So before we begin, I just want to throw some terminology out there for people who are unfamiliar with these terms, haven't heard them before, have heard them and are not quite comfortable with the meaning. You will see these terms in the documentation and you'll hear me say them sometimes, or Dave or other folks at Alpha. But when we're working with branding your application, what you're really doing is you're styling it. And a style is just the visual design of your elements of your app. It's the colors, it's the layouts, it's fonts, it's spacing, it's borders, that kind of stuff. And within the context of your application, there's two ways of creating that style. One is called CSS, which is Cascading Style Sheets, which is the language used to define the styles of your app being the HTML and JavaScript that runs the actions. The CSS is applied to HTML to give it that look. Well, in addition to CSS, you also have SASS, which is syntactically awesome style sheets. And it's a language extension for CSS that adds a bunch of stuff like functions for doing calculations of colors or nesting your CSS declarations in a little block to make things easier to manage and read, as well as creating variables, which would allow you to define something like a color in one place and use it throughout your entire application and only have to update it in that one place as opposed to copying the same CSS color value around everywhere. In Alpha Anywhere itself, the places where you use these are in the web theme. The web theme is a collection of all the SASS, the CSS, and the images that might be used for icons. Any JavaScript used within the application to apply that style. All of that's contained within a web theme in Alpha Anywhere. And if you've ever looked at the style property for your UX component or your grid component, you might see something in there that says Alpha. Well, Alpha is a web theme. And that's the thing that's making your app look the way it looks when you look at it in live and working preview, or even after you publish it. Another term you might hear with web theme is SASS theme. These are the same thing. And the reason why we have that term is because in older versions of Alpha Anywhere, we strictly use CSS. And at one point we moved from only using CSS to this SASS theme web theme, which is the current thing that we support now and what we run. So if you hear the term web theme, SASS theme, we're talking about the current styles in Alpha Anywhere. If you hear somebody talk about the style builder, that could mean a number of things. The old CSS themes that we had were referred to as styles, and you edited them in the style builder. With these ones that we have in Alpha Anywhere today, they are web themes, and you edit them with the web theme builder. So key terms to know. Web themes themselves can style both web and mobile applications. We have a few built-in web themes, including Alpha, Android Light, Android Dark, and iOS. The Alpha theme itself has 17 variations called inherited themes. You will see them as an option when you go to change the style for your component. They'll say alpha dash something like alpha-blue or alpha-magenta or alpha dark. Those are all variations on the alpha theme itself. In terms of customizing those web themes, there are a variety of ways you can do it. To edit them, they are edited using CSS and SASS, and the themes themselves are implemented with SASS predominantly. And we have a lot of different ways for making changes to those themes, including copying it and often making a new one from alpha and just changing it to just making local changes by changing some of the class name definitions, either in the component or in a style tweak. And we have a lot of tools in Alpha Anywhere for customizing that theme or just customizing something very specific like a button. And here's really all the ways and places you can change how your app looks and feels. And I've organized this from things that are going to globally affect your entire workspace, or at least your entire project, are on the left. And the things that are only going to really apply to whatever control or line of HTML or client-side template that you're working with, and maybe a list, those are going to be very local. So the web theme builder, inherited styles, style tweaks, and color palettes are ways to change the look and feel of your application globally throughout the entire project. In the middle, we have subthemes and component CSS. Subthemes are a way to create a variation on a control, like an edit control or a button or a tabbed interface, and apply that separately from the global theme. You can, like, I think the common example that everyone has seen, or the one that we use a lot, is buttons. You can create a subtheme for a button. Maybe you want buttons to have a double line border and a drop shadow, and maybe you want the color to be fuchsia. You could create a subtheme that had all those attributes for a button. And then when you added a button control, you can say, use this subtheme. Component CSS similarly doesn't necessarily apply to your entire project. That it can if your entire project is a tabbed UI and you're adding all your other components in through tabs and you've added component CSS at the tab level. That will affect the entire application. But in general, component CSS tends to only affect that particular component where you're using it. And then at the extremely local level, nearly every control in Alpha Anywhere has a property somewhere that you can use to change the CSS, apply an inline style, apply a class name. So those types of properties, they're local, they only apply to that control. They generally don't extend beyond that. Here's a, it looks like I made that track twice. My bad. Anyway, here it is again. So we have global themes over here, component and local. Again, global theme changes are your style tweaks, color palettes, creating an inherited theme, or creating a custom theme. You can create a custom theme by copying the alpha theme, one of the existing ones, or you can start from scratch. If you start from scratch, there will be nothing in that theme other than the files that go with it. It's up to you to go through and specify everything, how it maps into the grid, how it maps into a UX, tabbed UI, so on and so forth. These other two things at top, they may not seem like they affect your project, your entire project, but they do, especially color palettes. I've seen people get confused in the past when they change the color palette. But the color palette setting, when you see it in the UX component properties, and I believe also in the grid, that applies to the entire project. So if you go in there and you pick coffee, you're going to change everything. Now that might be what you want, but just be aware that change is global for your entire project. And then style tweaks as well are modifications to the web theme stored separately. So one reason you might want to prefer to do a style tweak as opposed to creating a custom theme is that if we create or add a new control that uses new settings in the web theme itself to style it, you may not get those with your custom theme. So the control may just appear to not work in a new release of Alpha Anywhere. If you do a style tweak, especially for one on one of our system themes like Alpha, all those style changes will come in. So you can see what the intent was when we added that control of how it should look. And then using the style tweak, you could then modify it to work within your brand, or maybe you want it to look a little bit different. But that's one reason to maybe stay away from custom theme if you're not comfortable with CSS and SASS. The web themes themselves are composed of two things, and I think I'm going to pull up Alpha Anywhere for this to look at it. I apologize. I was aggressively closing all the applications before the webinar and apparently closed the installer as well. Let's go down here and pull open. Let's launch this guy. We'll come up here. We'll just make a new workspace for this. Call it Web Themes. So on the Web Projects control panel, there's a little drop down here. It's called More. And in here you have this web style builder. And if you click that, it asks you to select a style. And this list here, I don't know why these guys down here are appearing, but these are all the web themes that we have available. These ones down here, the GR Gray, Blue Olive, these are the old CSS themes. Same with these ones. I would recommend not using those. We don't maintain them anymore. But if you come in here and you pick something like Alpha and then click OK, it'll ask you if you want to make a copy. We'll make a copy here. I'm going to rename it. If you use the same name, it will use your local version and not the system version. But once you have something, either a copy of an existing theme or a new one, you're going to be shown the web theme builder. And it has two parts. It has the code tab, which has this map area. And if you click on part, it's going to have this long list of all these things like general and grid and UX, tabbed UI, panel card, control bar, accordion. And if you dig down in it a little bit more, there's all these properties in here, class name, the title class name, and so on and so forth. These are all the properties for classes, colors, font spacing, images used for indicators. I know if we looked at the grid has a whole bunch of icons like first page, previous page, next page. This is where this stuff is all defined. And so here is where you can come in and change things like the alternating class names used for alternating row colors in a grid, for example. That's actually at one place in the product where you turn on alternating row colors, but the colors themselves are actually controlled here. But all of these things, these settings, they're defined here. And over here on the left-hand side is you have a preview for whatever the current subtheme that you're looking at for that part. And those subthemes are here. Now, every subtheme has a base, but some of them have more than a base. And button, again, is the one we're going to constantly reach out for because it has a whole bunch. We've defined a whole bunch of different variations on button that you can choose through the subtheme. But in terms of the web theme itself, these are the parts that you can customize and create variations for. The other aspect in this, in the web theme, is variables, and you're going to find those on the Adjust tab, as well as if you've copied one of the system themes, they're going to be down here as well. They all start with a little $. These are SASS variables. But here, there's a bunch that have been presented for quick change. So you can come in here and quickly change a color or something for the theme, and it applies to the entire web theme itself. So if you don't like these panel headers, I believe it's foreground, if you wanted to make those lighter. Is that the right one? It may not have been the right one. Here we go. You come in header background. Those are lighter now. And it's the whole, I've made one change and now I've got a background color I want. And that's it. All I've had to do is come in here and change the variables, which changing variables for web themes doesn't necessarily require copying the styles and making a local copy. Oh, let's come down here. Oh, it's not going to do it. Okay. Thought I could select it. So those are the two pieces of the web theme. You have all the parts that you can configure and then variables that you can define on top of that. I use throughout the definition. Some parts can be nested in other parts, meaning that with the grid, there are definitions for detail view within that. And rather than breaking that out into grid detail view, we've kept it all in one place. And again, you find all that stuff on the code tab. The variables, colors, fonts, and spacing. You can extend the variables. There's a way to do that. We can talk about that later if someone has a question on how to do that. But that's those are exposed to the UI, so you can change them not only in that web theme builder, but I believe the UX component has a way to adjust the variables on the web theme itself without having to go in there. And here we go. Here's the adjust tab where the variables are defined, and then here's the code tab where you find all the parts that you can modify. SubThemes, if you looked at quite briefly, they're a variation on a web theme part. Every single web theme part has a base. You can create subthemes for all the parts that we have listed in there, but not all controls that use those themes support it. I do not believe there's an option to pick a subtheme for a grid. So that's something to be aware of. If you run into a situation where you'd like that functionality, by all means, email guys@alphasoftware.com and we'll submit it to the dev team and ask them to add that feature. And in terms of defining subthemes, you don't have to go through that web theme builder. They can also be added separately as a style tweak. If we go back into Alpha Anywhere here, and I'll quickly make a UX. Or apparently a A5W page. Oops, let's select all files. Web component, UX, okay. We come over here to properties. There's this property, style, subthemes, and CSS tweaks. You can add a subtheme here, such as one for button list, and say you want to copy the vertical one, primary vertical, and then we'll call it vertical 2, and click OK. This creates a subtheme for the current style, which is alpha. It's a system theme, and this is going to be stored separate. So it will work with the alpha theme, and should any changes come in a future update for the alpha theme, you'll get them, but your subtheme will still exist here. And then here on the right-hand side is just a few more pictures of what subthemes we have for buttons. So we have the raised one, subtle, has different background colors. And here's the base one, the one that's used by default. And again, CSS subtheme and set to style tweaks. These are stored in the project. They affect the entire project, so it's important to know. But they can include, in addition to the subthemes, you can also put additional CSS or SASS in there that you want to modify the project with. Color palettes, again, they override the web theme. They are stored in your project. They do affect the entire project. You can create your own if you'd like. If you set up a color palette and you really like what you've created, then you can save it. There's these buttons at the bottom, one for loading any that have been defined, and then managing what you have and saving the current configuration. That's also found in the UX component settings for the color palette. An inherited theme is like a style tweak. So I'm going to back up briefly. to talk about style tweaks. Style tweaks are stored in your project in a special folder. So we're going to go take a look at that. They're in the CSS folder. Oh, I should probably save my UX here. Let's add a class here. We'll just do that. I'll click OK instead of just closing it. We'll add a control so this will save, because you have to have a control in your component to save it. There it goes. I'll save this. Text box. So where are we? All right. When the web projects folder inside the CSS directory, there's a folder called style tweaks. And within that, you're going to find a folder that has the same name as the style name that you've chosen for your component when you created that style tweak. And in there, you're going to see the styletweaks.json file. You can edit these in the web theme builder. It seems a little, I think it seems a little counterintuitive, but if you come in here and there's an option to edit style in style builder. If you've created a style tweak, then you come into the web theme builder, up here in the header, up in the title bar, it's going to say the name of the web theme that you tweaked. And then after that, the word tweak. So it says alpha tweak. And there's that blue color. Now I don't have any parts in here like I did when I copied the alpha theme, because I didn't create any subthemes for any of the parts in the alpha theme. If you come over to the adjust, you will see what you saw before, because over here is just a preview, and then you do have access to variables as well. But just know on the code tab, this is just the changes you've added with the style tweak. If you've created a bunch of style tweaks and it's something that you want to save and reuse in another project, maybe you can create an inherited theme. An inherited theme is just the same thing, except it's got a name, and you can assign it as the web theme, the style for your component. And in the web theme builder itself, it's up in the title bar, you're gonna see whatever it was that you are basing your inherited theme on. So you could create, well, the example here is Alpha Slate. Alpha Slate is an inherited theme. It's based on the Alpha theme. And what it has in it is a bunch of different colors, and I think a few different fonts that change how the Alpha theme looks. But that's all that's in there. But because it's named, you can go off and create another component and pick that to use it as the web theme for that component. And the other nice thing is that you can save those inherited themes as global themes, which would give you access to that theme throughout your entire workspace. Getting down into a more local definition, we're going to now start looking at where you can add styling information for the component, or even down into the control level. And these are just the different places you can go to do it. One place for adding CSS and components is within the local CSS definitions property. These are places where you can add classes or overwrite classes that are in the web theme for that component. It's stored with the component. It's only loaded when the component is loaded, and it's edited with the CSS builder, which is what you see right here. Similarly, this is kind of at a larger scale, but also getting more local. Controls have CSS, the list, the view box, the control bar. They have CSS tabs within them where you can add customizations that are kept with the control. So an example, this would be the list with a Kanban layout. Those Kanban columns are defined using CSS to get them to appear next to each other. And that CSS is stored within the list itself. So if you copy that control somewhere, you keep all of the styling that you put into it so that it looks the same. The view box, the control bar, the form view control, they all have the same functionality within them. And the other thing that's nice is that those class names are namespace to the control, so they only affect the control. So there's a class here called Kanban columns, but that only applies to the list itself when it's defined at the control level CSS. It gets wrapped in something so that it doesn't conflict with anything else in your application. On the flip side, it's important that you realize that if you're trying to do something here that would affect your entire application, you'd be better off doing that up at the component level. And then similarly, text boxes, drop-down boxes, buttons, all of these have class and style properties where you can add another class or overwrite the class that's used by that control or add some inline styling. Same with the width and height are kind of a way to also affect the controls directly to change how they look. And then this is my last slide about useful links. And I think the best way to give this to people is to give you the link to the GitHub project where I pulled most of this content from, because I've done this presentation before. But before we do that, I wanted to come back here and talk briefly about how do you go about branding your application. So it's all good that you know where you can go to make these changes, but how do you start? And if you are just starting out and you're very new to this, start as local as possible, which means start by editing those individual controls, your text box, your button. Figure out what the background color needs to be, and just do it as inline CSS until you've figured out what you want. And once you've figured out what you want, you can start pulling that out into classes and thus use a class instead of inline CSS on those controls, or pull that up a step further and create a whole subtheme. And if the subtheme is the look you want by default, then you make an inherited style and you change the base properties for that theme so that everything looks by default what you want. And then eventually, once you're comfortable enough, you could go as far as having your own custom style that you've built and, taken out the features you don't like from alpha or added new ones in. And then now you've got your own branded theme for your applications that you can apply to. Maybe you only have one, maybe you have a lot. But at that point, you've now got something you can reuse. So the global settings are the ones that are going to make those big, broad changes. But in terms of building this up, you want to start small until you've figured out what you need. So that's my whole presentation. I could demo some of this stuff if you guys would like to see where you make some of these changes. I know we get questions all the time on things like tab band and that kind of stuff. I don't want a demo button because we've done that too much. But I would like to open it up to any questions people have about branding their applications if they have something specific.
Sure. So it was one, and I think you've already covered it, but I'm just ask it again. And that was that if you make a change in a component, it can affect your entire application. Is that correct?
It can, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And yeah, maybe just a live example of that again would be kind of useful.
Yeah. So let's take a look at that real quick here. So I have text box here, the component. And if you remember, we came in here, we defined blue as a class, and it sets the color property to blue. Color is the property of text. So if you come in here and let's say let's put a container around this. Pick a regular none container. And we'll go up to container and we'll tell it its class name is blue. And I was about to type it in, but I'm gonna show you how you would select that here. So this is the class name selector. And blue is one of the available CSS class names because I've defined it in the component CSS. Or no, I've defined it in a style tweak, so it's gonna pull that in. But if you don't see it, there's a search thing here. you can type in to narrow that down. And then when you find it, you gotta click the plus button to add it. If you don't do that, it's not gonna add it. And then we click OK. So that adds blue to the container class. So anything in container is gonna have a class name of blue. So in theory, our text box should be blue. If not, we can put it on the text box control itself. It's not, so let's put it on the text box. And here we go. Class, default, and blue. See if that works. So the reason that didn't work is because of specificity rules in CSS, something with a more specific, there we go. So now our text is blue. Some class in my web theme had a more specific selector than just blue, the class name blue existing. So it was something like is a text control and has this class name and was overriding the color in that text box. But now that we've applied it to the text box class itself, all the text we had in here is blue. So let's save that. And let's come back over to the Web Projects control panel and let's make another one. Let's duplicate this control. We're gonna call it text box 2. All right. Let's open that up. And instead of going into the subtheme and style trees, because that's global, let's come in here and actually edit the component CSS. We'll be in code mode. And let's add blue again, but let's make it pink. We'll save that. Now if we live preview this one, the text is pink. Because I've told this specific component, like, hey, you know, if you've got the blue class, you know, let's just make it pink. Which is already overriding our subtheme, or not our subtheme, our style tweak. But if we come over here now, we make a tabbed UI component. We come over to controls and we add 2 controls for those UX components. Let's add text box and text box 2 and live preview it. We'll open text box first because that's the one we made earlier and we see our text is blue. So now we'll load text box 2 and our text is pink. But now it's also pink in text box. So that's how a local CSS definition can override your other things that have happened that you've defined in other components. So just be aware that that's a thing. So that's the example. A similar problem can happen if you define a JavaScript function into components that have the same name. Whichever component you load second is going to override the first one. So CSS and JavaScript both. It's easy to override stuff.
Very cool. Taking a look for other questions. I don't see a lot of questions here on this. There is a question though about, or someone has questions about opening up grids using the tabbed UI option. And without getting too much into the weeds, I was wondering if you could talk to us a little bit about tabbed UI, the component, and also I believe that there is a replacement for those who wish to do things not using those older components, but using the UX component.
So. Yeah, so yeah, tabbed UI is one of our older components. It was added or created because people wanted to build tabbed interfaces as a web application. And at the time we had grids, and they were called dialogues then, but they're now UXs now. Those are what we had. We didn't really have the concept of a tab interface in either of those things. So we added the tabbed UI, which lets you add components and reports, HTML pages, PDF documents or whatever that can be opened up on separate tabs, which you can then, sort or navigate, close, refresh, so on and so forth. When we introduced the UX component, we started adding in a whole bunch of functionality to that, including tab controls, tab panes, as well as the ability to render panels as a tabbed layout. So what Dave mentioned there with the tabbed UI replacement, it's really an alternative way to create a tabbed interface. And the reason you may be interested in that is that the tabbed UI control is not for mobile applications. It's really just for web applications. It's not optimized for mobile. It doesn't really handle touch events well. But the UX components tabbed interface for the panels does work in that environment, can handle your smaller screen sizes. So if you're looking for a tab layout, certainly look at the UX for mobile. And also, if you haven't built anything yet and you want to create that, also look at the UX for tabs because it offers a lot more flexibility with what you can do. Your choices here on this tabbed UI are pretty limited and what you have control over on the look and feel before you have to actually get in and start changing the web theme. But the UX component has exposed so much more of that at the local level, so it's a bit easier to style and brand.
Excellent. Okay, I'm looking through to see if there's any more on styling. There isn't. I'm seeing there's some questions here about the view box control, which means that, and this comes up a bunch, so maybe this is probably worth doing a segment
Perhaps.
on. Can you tell us a little bit about the view box control, though, just in general terms, not necessarily without doing a demo of it?
Right. The viewbox control is really just it's a free-for-all control.
Uh-huh.
It has the ability to create your own custom events, hook it up to data source, and really do whatever you want with it. We can take a look at it here. I can't remember it's an actual, yeah, it is a data control, so it has a value, so it works with all our JavaScript get set value kind of stuff. But it's really a place where you can come and just build any kind of layout that you need. If you've never looked at it, there's some really cool examples in here, including image map. I'll save that. I'll just move that down here. And
Now, there is also a map control, but this is different, right?
this is different, and you're about to see, I'm gonna add a panel. I know you didn't want to do a demo, but I'll do one a little.
That's all right.
Just to really, drive the point home that you can really do anything with this control. Now, granted, you have to do it with HTML and CSS and JavaScript, but you can build really any kind of interface that you need with it, including maybe you want a map that when you click on it displays the current selected country. So there's really no other control in Alpha Anywhere that you can do this with.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's all contained in one place. You could build it with like a freeform control, but it's not going to include
I suspect with that
your
flexibility,
JavaScript.
yeah,
Yeah, it's not going to include the
it's going to
JavaScript
be a
for
little
your
bit.
control.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. It's like everything you need to make this control work is contained within the control itself.
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
And you can build your own of the view boxes, not just use
build your own. Yes.
Yeah.
You don't have to use the pre-built ones.
Cool.
But it comes with events and.
Yeah, I think it would be. I think it would be good at some point to.
This is all done with SVG, but lots of properties on what happens when an event happens when it's populated. If somebody clicks on it when you're drawing the content, it's got a lot of flexibility.
Very cool. Okay, so here's a question. If you were to go about building a video gallery, like for training or for whatever reason, and you wanted to do that in Alpha Anywhere, what controls might you use? How might you do that?
I would do a list, a list control that contains all your videos. You cancel out here. No, hold on. Click OK.
We did at one point have a video, I think a video player gallery, or is that just an image gallery?
And I
don't
think what you're
recall.
thinking of is the video player component,
Yes,
which is not mobile friendly.
which exactly. So
Yeah.
yeah,
So
so we
what
did
you'd
have
want
two.
to do is
Yes.
do a list and then I can't remember. I think it's not data bound video control. If this is in a mobile environment,
Uh-huh.
let's do ad control. We have a bunch of video controls in here. So video player,
And then
which
there's one
works
which says
on
database.
web and mobile, but you
Uh-huh.
can populate the video to play from that list when it's selected, assuming that that's how you want it to work. And then if you want people to be able to record video recorder player, you can only record on mobile, but that's also an option there. These other
That makes
two
sense.
are a bit older and
Okay.
not
So the one that you're pointing at is
recommended for use. Yeah, the video
the
player control.
video player is the one to use, perhaps. Okay,
Yep.
cool.
Yeah.
And the source for the video player, can that be like Vimeo or Vidler or a service like a streaming service, or does it have to be an MP4, or how does that work?
It supports a bunch of different formats.
Okay.
I'm trying to figure out where we'd set that. Well, these are just the events. Let me go dig up the documentation for it.
All right. Yeah, video is being used more and more in applications, which I think is cool. One example that I've seen, I don't know if any of you saw the example done by Robin Bennett, but he tends to have videos playing on his login screens, which kind of gives a really nice appearance when you first come to a portal.
I think this just supports any video type. Yeah, and
Cool.
it has methods to get the control so you can, pause or play the video. And I believe the set value method is what works with it. Yes, it's a data control. So if you wanted to set the video that was playing, you would use Java, the dialog object.set value to set the video to play. And that
That's
would
cool.
just be the URL.
So two things. First of all is, could you put this documentation link, would you mind putting that in the chat window? Awesome.
Sure thing.
And the second thing is, you had just mentioned the type set set a control value using JavaScript.
Yes.
And for those of you who haven't done that before, it's a question that we get asked a lot. Like, how do I do something that sets the value, say, of a text box or something like that? And if you could do a little demo of that, that would be cool, because it's easy, but you do have to know how and what you need to click to get there.
You do, yes. So you want to do it. There we go. Working with data controls. This is what I was trying to figure out.
Oh, okay, great.
If you go to the data controls main page, there's a section in here that talks about working with data controls in JavaScript, and that lists all the methods. Well, not all of them, just some of the methods that are commonly available throughout all of those controls, including get value and set value. And what these do is let you add custom behaviors to your application. So let's do here, let's work with this one. Let's add a button. Let's call this one get value. And I'm gonna get rid of the container. And let's turn off the, well, no, let's leave the break on, and we'll add another one. Oop, button. Set value. Turn that break off. So we have this text box one control, and then we're gonna have two buttons. One's gonna get the value and display it in just a JavaScript alert. The other one will set it to some constant value that we're gonna define. And we're gonna do all of this in the JavaScript touch mouse pointer click event.
When people scroll down for the first time, they see JavaScript, and then they see a touch mouse pointer events, and then they see the separate thing called JavaScript. Can you just quickly point, I know I keep interrupting you right where you're showing stuff, but could you point out the difference between those two sections?
Yeah, These ones down here, don't use them unless you need to do key press or on change on focus. Or you are strictly using mice in your
Okay.
application.
Yeah.
The
Desktop only.
JavaScript touch mouse pointer events are designed to work in both a mobile environment where someone is literally using their hand to interact with your application, as well as a desktop environment where they're using a mouse and keyboard. And so click is designed to work in both those cases. This on click, it works, but it's got some drawbacks in the mobile context, in that if somebody does a tap, there's like a pause and a wait to try to figure out what that is before it sends it off to click, whereas our click event up here has been designed to handle both the mouse click and the tap instantly.
Cool, thank you.
Yeah, so I always just use the event you find first as you're scrolling down.
Yep.
Yeah, you prefer to use click. We call them abstract events, but they're just designed to work with mobile. And you'll notice here too, there is one called tap, which is different from a click. So if that's something you're looking to hook, that's where you do it. So we'll do let's do get value, and I'm gonna go to text mode in here when I'm editing the click event, which shows me a little JavaScript editor. And then we're gonna insert that get value method to get the value from our text box one control. And if you can't remember what the method is called, there's a link down here called insert UX component method, which opens up this method dialog. It's got a ton of stuff in it and seems to be sorted randomly, but you type in get value, it's going to show you your options. We want from a UX control, so we're going to insert that. Get value reads the value from a UX control and returns its value, which you could store in a variable. And if you delete that UX control name and hit spacebar, you get this little pop-up help thing. And if you right-click on that black text, it's going to either insert the name of the only control you have in your component, or give you a little drop down for you to pick which one that you want to choose the value from. So we're going to get the value from text box one. We're going to store it in a JavaScript variable, which is defined using the var or let keywords. And then we're just going to do alert value. An alert is a JavaScript alert. It blocks the execution environment. So when that's up, nothing else is happening. It's one of the few things that does block JavaScript execution. I'm going to save that. And then the other one we're going to create here is set value. So we're going to select set value button, open up that click event, go over to text mode, go down to insert UX component method. I'm going to search for set value. And there's a few variations on set value. There is set value from, which will set the value of the control from the value of another control. And then also a set default value, which lets you set the default value of the control. And this takes a few more parameters. It takes the name of the control that we want to change. So let's spacebar here and right click that and get our text box one. Value is what value we're going to set in there. And then this last thing is optional. It says on or change event. Whenever the value in the control changes, it may trigger an event, watch events. If you've ever created a calculated field based on a control's value, if on or change event is true, when this control value is changed, it will fire that watch event and your calculated control update. If you pass in false, it won't do that. We're not going to change the default behavior, which is true.
Yeah. Oh, the default behavior is true.
Default behavior is to fire the events. Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm going to go here and say value. This is a text box. Yeah, by default, it does fire those events. We'll pass in value. So we've defined our value up here of our value. This is a text box, this is a string, and we're going to set the value in text box one to this text. I'm going to save that, and then we'll go ahead and we'll preview this. So here's our text box. Some text, it's pink, you can't read it. If I click get value, pop up, there's some text, that's the value in this box. Click OK to close it. Set value, and now it says this is a text box. So that's how you can get and set values on data controls. And those controls that this applies to are listed here in this section, including all of the more controls. So hopefully that answers the question.
Yes, thanks very much. Looking forward to see if there are other controls, other questions. And a few which are off topic, but they look like they would be really detailed. So just remind folks, I mean, feel free to ask them here, but in some cases I ask folks to send them on to guides. That's guides, GUIDES at alphasoftware.com. We're happy to take any question there. Let's see, over video tutorials. I think we may have gotten to the end here, though we do have one recommendation. We would want to see a new style in Alpha Anywhere that looks less mobile-y. You know, like the Alpha style is okay. It looks good on a mobile device, but on a rendered in a web browser, you know that kind of.
The one question I have for that person is, do they know about compact style? Because I think the biggest complaint I see about people wanting a web-friendly theme is that there's too much white space. And the alpha themes
They
all
might know
include
about it, but actually
compact
point that
mode.
one out because that's a pretty cool feature. Yeah.
Yeah. So compact mode is designed for your mouse and keyboard environment, and that it eliminates all that white space. So your buttons get smaller.
Mm-hmm.
Your text boxes are smaller. If you are, you can.
So which makes a bigger deal when you've got a lot of controls.
Yeah, it uses
Not when you have
significantly
just
less
two.
space. No, a lot of people that I've seen ask for that, or maybe not a lot, a significant portion of them.
Uh-huh.
I'm gonna quickly make a connection string here.
Sure.
They've got a grid or something, and they've come in here and they've built a new grid component and data source. Let's connect that. Let's grab customers. I'm quickly building a grid component here, and they've added all their fields in here. And it looks big. Now I can't remember this defaults to compact mode on or off. And it looks like it's compact mode is on, but I will sometimes see people who have not turned on compact mode. So if compact theme is off, that's going to take up a ton of space, which is not desirable in a mouse and keyboard environment where you clearly have several mice worth of space between each of these. So definitely take a look at the compact theme if that's
so
the reason why
that
you're
the follow-up question is going to be, if you wanted to design the same component to work on web and mobile, would it be possible to detect whether or not it was coming from a phone and switch themes?
Yeah. Yep. Cool. And I think I'm flying from memory.
All right.
And the memory is vague on this one.
There's also a searchy thing. Yeah.
Responsive layout.
Uh-huh.
Find property.
So here you can set a rule like, okay.
Let's see here. Device is mobile. And then add an action. Doesn't look like there's an option here to do it.
Directly for that one, yeah.
Right. So we'd have to dig into it a bit. I know like you can work around it, like, so if you've got a panel layout or navigator, that's your whole app. You can come in here and I don't have one. Okay. But instead of making the rule mobile, you could make it not mobile and say if it's not a mobile device, then set the compact theme on that container, because that's all compact layout is it's a class name called compact. So if we come back here and do a live preview, So this is that default kind of mobile layout. Everything's
Yep.
big. If you had like everything wrapped in a container, I could even just come in here and let's add in button. I want to keep the default class name for my button. Button compact, but hoping this works. If not, I'll have to put the container around it, but
It's a live demo. It has to
there we
work.
go. So
Yeah.
now it's small, and it didn't make the whole button small because I only made the text small by adding compact to the button. So, but you know, you could take that out and wrap that in a container. And there are also ways to dynamically, we'll put that on the container class, compact.
So compact is just a class. So if you set
It's
that
just a class, yeah.
it'll apply it for you. Oh, that's terrific.
That's all turning compact mode on does, is it applies the compact class to the entire component. So,
oh, neat. Okay.
You know, there's the normal and there's the small. So, you know, there are ways to work around it. You shouldn't have to do that though. You should be able to just detect when they load the application. But I mean, again, if you're building for mobile and web, there are other ways to accomplish that.
Okay.
I've lost my train of thought at the end of that statement. Sorry.
Oh. Well, that happens towards the ends of webinars. Okay, cool.
Yep. Yeah.
Let's see what else we've got. Can you use, okay, here's another one. In a list, can you use percentages for width? If you wanted to set it to take over. Often with lists, we say fill the entire container.
Yeah, you can use percentages on width. You just cannot use percentages on heights.
On height, okay.
Yeah, width is fine.
Yep. Very good. And awesome. That's it. Oh, and someone has pointed out that we're missing a few of the webinars for recently. If okay, we will make sure we they're not
been updated.
So we'll make sure we get them up onto YouTube. In the meantime, if you would like to, if you want to just see them, send an email to guides@alphasoftware.com. I can get you source unedited links for a few of them. Otherwise,
I could have sworn though that they were up there. I was copying links off of them.
Oh, well, let's take a look.
Yeah, I'm gonna go see if there's a webinar missing. I would like to know
exactly
which one do you mean. So
do you want to drag YouTube over so we can see it?
Yeah. So here's February 23rd and February 16th and February 9th.
Yep.
If anywhere demo Q&A on our
that looks pretty good.
On our channel. If there's one missing, maybe it's one that was from a while ago that on occasion we accidentally.
We do. We have missed a few.
Forget.
So guides@alphasoftware.com. We'd be happy to look it up. Cool. Yeah, so the last two do look like they've been posted. They were posted just a few days ago, though.
Right. And then just before you go, I want to send you guys the link for the it's an older presentation, but it does have the slides. Here you go. So all the links that I showed at the end of that slide, and I'll put the link, put the presentation up online so you guys can access it. But it was the styling apps, January 29th, and I believe, let me make this bigger. If you go into presentations, styling applications, January 29th. It's available in PDF and a PowerPoint, but you can go in there and it's the last slide and it has all those links to download.
Oh, good to know. Awesome.
Yeah, if you don't want to wait a few days for us to upload it and post it.
Okay. So that looks like it's there. I'll give everyone a few seconds to go grab that. Otherwise, it looks like we are out of questions. So Sarah, thanks very much for presenting today. Thanks everyone for showing up. If you do have more questions, of course, send them to guides, GUIDES @alphasoftware.com. Until then, take care and stay well. Hope to see you next week. Bye-bye.